What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Investor Play. Today, I'm going to go over what I do weekly to kind of hold myself accountable with acquiring more deals. A lot of people wonder how I acquire so many deals. And the first thing I'll ask them is like, well, how many offers did you submit this week? Oh, none. How many walkthroughs did you do? None. Okay, well, how are you going to get anything under contract and make any new deals if you didn't do either of those things? So, this is something that I started doing maybe 6 months or a year ago. Every week, I'll keep track of how many walkthroughs I do, how many offers I made, and then how many contract that's resulted in. And also, I'll do a little forecast for the week I have coming up. Again, this is a full transparency show. I'm also going to show you guys all my work orders for the week that I got the past week for as far as repairs and stuff like that. And also for the week going forward, if I have any appraisals scheduled, if I have any vacancies, active projects. Again, these are all things that I keep just in a notes tab, again, to hold myself accountable. So that way, if I see I have, hey, why do I still have this vacancy in here? Why is my vacancy growing? Something just a little bit to keep myself accountable. I do it every Sunday, again, just to keep myself accountable for the past week and the week going forward. And also at the end of every single episode I make on Sundays for this, I'm also going to be doing a little Q&A from you guys that you guys either commented or DM'd me asking me questions and stuff like that off my socials. So make sure you stay to the end if you want to check out the Q&As. But again, it's going to be a quick episode. Just do a little recap. Last week I had 3 walkthroughs. I made 3 offers and I got 1 contract out of it. So that's a pretty good return rate for contracts. I had 3 work orders. Again, full transparency. I have 60 rentals. A lot of people are so worried about getting that 2 a.m. call that their toilet's backed up or something like that. Guys, I spend maybe an hour a month on my repairs and stuff like that. I have a full-time employee who works for me. Something comes up, I call him, he goes and takes care of it. You don't need to have a full-time employee. I didn't up until recently, especially if you only have, a couple rentals. It's good to have a handyman. Most people think that you want to go get, your Supreme Plumbing or CC Plumbing or something like that. Guys, you're going to spend way too much money. Every time you have a leaky sink or something like that, you have to go call one of those. So you kind of want a jack of all trades. He does a little bit of everything. Again, I manage these properties pretty much remote since I spend so much of my week either in Houston or San Antonio. Um, I'm not always here. So I made it a point that when someone calls me, even when I had only had 2 or 3 doors, hey, I was calling somebody else to go over there because I didn't do this to get another job. At the time I was still working 60 hours a week as a federal agent. I didn't have time to go every time somebody called me for something to go over there and check it because I couldn't. I was 3, 4 hours away, and now I still am. So, again, you want to find somebody a handyman. He's probably going to be the one that saves you the most money in your business, the most, because you can't, like I said, you can't afford to call a legit plumbing company every time you have an issue or something like that. There's a little rant for the week. Get a handyman. He saves you a lot of money. And for the week coming up, I have already have 2 scheduled walkthroughs. I have 3 closings. One's a purchase and then 2 refinances. I have 1 inspection for housing, 1 appraisal. I have 3 active projects still going on. There'll be a 4th one starting probably Friday, and then I have 2 vacancies on the board to get filled. So little tips about that. If you can't get them rented out in the first week of the month, typically you're not going to get it rented out to the beginning of next month. So if you do get somebody who wants to rent the following month in the first, guys, don't hesitate to take that deposit and hold it to the next month. You think, oh, well, I'm going to lose a whole month's rent or half a month's rent or whatever it is. Guys, if they're a good tenant, there's a good chance that they're not looking for a place on the 15th of the month. If they're a good paying tenant, they're usually going to want to be in on the 1st because their lease ends on the 30th. So yes, there's obviously other circumstances where people are moving and stuff like that. But if they're running like, hey, we need to move in tomorrow, I would do a little bit of digging of why they need to move in on the 8th of the month. They could be breaking their old lease and stuff like that. And you're already setting a bad precedent if you're signing up a tenant that just broke their last lease. So that can do you a little bit of digging. So since it is the middle of the month, I don't see those vacancies getting filled until probably the 1st of the month. So that's pretty much it. That's the forecast for the week I have coming up. Let's just jump right into the Q&A. So the first one comes off Facebook. The question was, how much do I set aside monthly for CapEx, vacancy, maintenance, etc.? So when you get to my level as far as portfolio size, I don't actually set aside money like you might hear on like bigger pockets and stuff like that. Like, oh, you need to set aside 10% for vacancy, 10% for this, 5%, whatever those numbers are. When you have as many properties as I have, you basically just need to have a ton of reserves. So it's not monthly money that I'm setting aside per se, but how I do still run my numbers that way. So if I'm trying to buy a property, you're not just looking at the PITI and the mortgage and then what it's going to rent for, and okay, here, there's my cash flow. No, you still need to pencil it out where it's like, okay, set aside 10% for vacancy, 5% for CapEx, 5% for maintenance and stuff like that. If those numbers work and those pass my scale, I don't ever look at those numbers again because I personally don't touch any of my cash flow. It all sits in an account. It's in, guys, this is investing. If you plan to try to live off of cash flow, you are already setting yourself up for failure. You can get to that point if you really save, but you need to set up your reserves anyways. So until you have 6, 12 months of reserves for every property, don't even plan on touching any of the money. It all should sit in the account. So, but to start, do that. I set aside money for maintenance and stuff like that when I first started. Also, you got to factor in a lot of what I'm doing is heavy remodel burrs now. So I'm already planning for this. So why would I set aside a bunch of money for capex when the roofs are new, the HVAC's new, the water heater's new? My biggest expense is going to be a plumbing leak or tenant turnover. So I mean, I have some properties that I have fully remodeled within 2 years ago. I haven't had a single maintenance request in 2 years because everything was new. Shouldn't have a maintenance request. So does that mean that I take that 10% for that was supposed to set aside for capex and pocket it? No, but it sits in the same account for my reserves. So that's kind of next level. But if you're just starting out, yeah, just get up another bank account and put the 10% for capex, 10% for maintenance, and 10% for vacancy off to the side. Be conservative. Put all of it. Like I said, you really shouldn't have a number. It all should go there. This is investing. Put it all there until you have the capital to be like, okay, hey, I can pay myself something or I can use this money for this. I personally don't. I still invest all of it back in. How do I determine what a house will rent for? This one came from Sarah off of Facebook. So I know there's rentometer and all those things that you're going to see on bigger pockets and the rent calculator and rent forecast. Guys, personally, in my market, they're not accurate. And I think that that's because you have, $1 million homes across the street from $100,000 homes. So when they do their little statistics of everything, it throws it all way off. If you have a 4 bedroom renting for $3,000 or $4,000, that's by the water, and then one street over, you have a 4 bedroom renting for $1,200 because it's the ghetto. So it throws all of their numbers off. So particularly, I don't like looking at those things. If you're buying in an area then you should be able to go find the good areas and be like, okay, hey, pull up Zillow. You know, it will tell you how many days it's been up for. And I would literally keep a spreadsheet when I first started investing down here and didn't know the area, and I would see how long they sat in the market for. If a house comes off, yes, they technically could have just removed the listing, but there's a good chance if that listing came down, that means it got rented. And at the time, I didn't have MLS access, so you can't see if it actually rented for what they were trying to get out of it. But you have a pretty good idea. Zillow even tell you like how many times they have been contacted. I would look at those, and if I say, hey, I think that one's low, for the condition of the property and the bedroom size for that area, and if they got 400 contacts in 3 or 4 days, then I know that they're probably just fishing for people to message them. And that's probably not an accurate price. It probably needs to be higher. But again, I'm always super conservative. If you pull 5 houses and you have a spread there, I'm always going to go with the lower end. If I get the higher end, great. But if I'm trying to underwrite a deal or underwrite multifamily or whatever, fly. Um, I'm always going to go with the lower side of it. If you have like a one-off property, like a 6 or 7 bedroom and it's in a luxury area where there's no other rentals, there's really no way you're going to know unless you just go try the market. You're going to have to list it. And if it sits for 30 days and nobody contacts you, then you know, okay, hey, I'm too high. I need to come down. But I would actually go on Zillow and I would look at all the addresses that are up there that are still for rent. And I would one check every day to see if they had a price decline, or again, this is already if you've already kind of picked out a property. You don't want to do this for every single market. But if you're like, no, this is the area that I'm going to buy in and I think I can get this for it, just by looking at it, you can get a general guesstimate. Hey, if it's remodeled, 3 bedroom house in this area goes for, between 1,800 to 2,000. And then also, you also can go right to the HUD's website and you can see what Section 8 pays. So if you plan on doing Section 8, you can see what they'll pay. Now, again, you can't go off that top number. If you watch my other video about Section 8, it's called a rent reasonableness. They have a little computer that they're going to put it in, and it's going to see exactly what that number spits out as is whatever the comparables in that area rented for. So if you're going to try to get that top of the number, but your property is in a bad area, you're not going to get that top number because it's going to pull the houses that are in that area of what they rented for. So again, so that's a little, you can't even really look at that. But if you have a Class A property and you know it's top of the line, you know you're in a top of the line area, then yeah, you could expect to get close to that top end with Section 8. Last one is from my buddy Juan. How you doing, Juan? He was one of my classmates at the academy when I was transferring agencies with the government. He was on Instagram. He said, "How do I find good contractors?" Man, I can make a whole episode for this one, and honestly, I might because I do get this question rather often. So I'm going to kind of keep it short and sweet. I'm not going to dig too far into this because I will make a full episode one to break down this exact question. You want to get multiple bids to start. Again, we're investors. We have rental properties. The guy pulls up in a $120,000 lifted truck with his business all over it, decaled, wrapped out. Probably not going to be the guy that you're going to end up using. You're really looking for somebody that is going to be good quality for a good price. The guy pulling up in the $120,000 Duramax is going to be somebody who's probably just going to be a GC who's going to sub all his stuff out. You don't want somebody who subs all his stuff out. Well, people say, why is that? Because you could do that yourself. I could call CC Plumbing. I could call Scott's Electrical or whatever it is and hire their licensed people and do that all myself. And it's going to save you the 5 or 10% GC fee that they're going to charge. You want somebody who actually runs their own crew. And they have the people on the crew that do electrical, do plumbing, and stuff like that. That's the only way you're going to make your numbers as an investor work with their numbers. And at the same time, you kind of have to negotiate with that. You have to tell them, hey, I'm an investor. You're going to get more work. This is one of the ways that I get the better prices from all my contractors. Because you got to understand, that guy who shows up on $120,000 Duramax, he probably went and bid 10 jobs that day. That costs money. He has to pay for marketing. That costs money. That's why he's going to charge the 5, 10 grand to remodel one bathroom. We can't afford that as investors. And plus, we're not looking for that kind of quality. We're looking for rental quality stuff. Tenants are going to beat it up. You're not looking for the $14 square foot glass tile that has to be laid perfectly. You're going to have subway tile. So first thing, get multiple bids. Second thing, again, you're looking for the guy that has his own crew, not somebody who's just going to GC all the work out. Third thing, one of the most important things, guys, start out small. Don't go buying a massive rehab your first gig because you don't have the contractors. You don't know if they're going to fuck you over or if they're going to suck. So maybe start with something that's cosmetic, like our lipstick, or maybe a small apartment. That's what I did. The first units I bought were 2-bedroom apartments. And I literally had 4 different people remodel each one of the apartments. And I literally told them against each other, this is basically tryouts, guys. Whoever does the best work gets to continue working with me. And for the best price and stays on timeline. And that kind of leads me into my next thing is, guys, you need to have some type of written contract. Even though you could be completely transparent of everything, you guys are on the same page, you're vibing well, it needs to be written down. Even if it's something small, I'll put it in a text message and text to them like, hey, this is what we talked about. This was the price. This is the end date. This is the start date. This is the chargeback, which if you don't know what a chargeback is, basically they say it's supposed to end on June 30th. And then you tell them, hey, every day after that's not done, it's $50 a day. So that way they know if they don't turn the keys back over to you and the job's done until July 2nd or 3rd, that's going to be $50 a day comes off of their bid. People say, contractors don't get, well, why do you do that? Well, because if you're new at this and you have hard money costs, when I started out, I would make it whatever my hard money costs were. That's what I was going to charge them. I wasn't trying to make money off of them, but hey, it's costing me that I don't have it's costing me money that I don't have, this job's not done, so I don't have a tenant in it. I don't want to pay those hard money costs. I need to rehab this or refinance this property to get it out of a 12% interest rate into a 5% interest rate. That's costing me money. So it's in turn, it's going to cost you money. Another thing that I always do, guys, you can't give them money up front. I know no contractors, if any contractors walk this, they don't want to hear it. You can't give them any money up front, especially if it's your first time. Tell them, just be honest with them. Hey, this is our first time working together. You need to do something before I'm going to give you any labor, and come out with a structured payout. Say you're doing painting and flooring and interior and exterior paint. Okay. Hey, when exterior paint's done, this gets paid. When interior gets paint done, this gets paid. When flooring is done, this gets paid. Always make the final payout the largest, because you got to remember you're going to have that chargeback and stuff like that in there. And if you make the last bid, say it's only 10%, guys, they're not going to come finish because they're already trying to set up the next job. And if they are going to get a check up front over there, they're not going to come back and finish that 10% work just for a couple $1,000s when they're already could be starting on the next one. And they're already behind schedule, so they're going to have the chargeback on there. They're not going to come finished. And I will tell you right now, and I'm sure every contractor will say this, no contractor wants to finish other contractors' jobs. So you need to structure it where you protect yourself that the work needs to get done. So you always keep, I say it's like 4 payouts. I'll always say, hey, 35% is the last payout. I don't care how you guys want to do the first 3 payouts. Have them write it up. Hey, when flooring is done, I want to get paid this. When this is this. As long as that last thing is 35% of the job, then we're all good. And you're not going to get that 35% until I've already done a walkthrough. I've gone through and checked to make sure everything's done. You turn the keys over to me, I pay you. That's how I structure it. And again, you don't pay them anything up front. Some markets might not be okay with that, then I'll find somebody else. I'm just not handing you money up front without nothing being done, especially when you don't know each other. Granted, if it's your cousin, brother, or sister, somebody you have a relationship with, or somebody who's had a relationship with your family, or you know them, and that contractor's been working perfectly for this investor and you got them in a referral, great. But people that you're just finding off the street basically to get them to work, not giving you any up front. And usually they'll try to say, well, hey, I need to get materials and stuff. No, you don't. This is another thing. You supply the materials. If it's flooring and stuff like that, I'm going to bring it. If it's stuff you need from Home Depot, paint, stuff like that, they have a text to confirm option with Home Depot. You go set up a pro account with them. They'll go right to the pro desk. They check out. It sends you a text message with exactly everything they're buying. And then you just approve it, and it charges your card, and they're on their way. And you tell them they're responsible for getting that stuff. Because that's another thing they say, oh, we need money up front for materials. No, you don't. Roofers are probably the only people that you're not going to be able to get away with that. So that might take a little bit more time trying to find a good roofer, because they're usually going to want that because the materials are so much up front. And I doubt you're going to be the one that's going to buy the shingles and hoofing them up on the roof. So that's the one thing that you might have to pay running front. But as far as like a GC or contractor, they're not getting anything up front until you for sure know that something's done and it's on a schedule and on a payout schedule. So as far as actually finding them, Facebook groups are big, obviously now. Word of mouth. Go to a real estate meetup. Ask them. Maybe they're willing to share their contractors. I'm sure if they're good, most of the time they're probably not going to share them. If they're an active investor, they don't want to give away their moneymaker. Actually, that's not true. I think I've gotten some referrals from people that have worked out. But it's usually the people I have like close relationship with. It's not just a random investor. It's somebody I actually know. So that's not 100% true. But yeah, Facebook groups. I mean, shit, I found my first handyman off of Craigslist. Craigslist is still a thing for workers. Again, as long as you're protecting yourself, try them out. There's nothing to lose because you're not going to hand them any money until every time you check whatever that schedule is. So that's how you really protect yourself from getting screwed over, is that you're going and checking before you hand anybody a check. Don't don't take their word for it. And don't take pictures. Don't even take FaceTime. You need to have eyes on. So if you're managing it from a distance, then you need to have somebody in your market, mom, brother, sister, cousin, somebody who can go look at it and physically put eyes on it. Hey, physically turn the faucet on. This guy's trying to get his plumbing payout. Physically turn the faucet on. Do we have hot and cold water there? Look under the sink. Is there any leaks? Guys, I've literally gotten videos of them saying, hey, the sink's done. I want to get paid. It's Friday. And they were literally, when I showed up the next day, I opened up the vanity and he had a bucket catching the water. So he hadn't done any of the plumbing underneath. He literally just ran one water line to the faucet, and the faucet was going in the drain and it looked like it was working perfectly fine. And then when you opened up the bucket underneath, or opened up the vanity underneath, there was just a bucket there catching the water. So yeah, there's ways to fudge everything. So always always check yourself, either that or somebody you know. Don't take a video. It's very easy to do FaceTime and skip over, parts of the flooring, then that's not done, or they're not opening the doors to the closet because they haven't done the flooring in the closet and they're trying to get paid out for flooring. There's ways to finagle everything. Physically, don't pay out any money until you get eyes on. That's another way how you schedule it. So, and it just takes time. You're going to go through a couple contractors. They're not going to be perfect. The people that are going to be very professional and show up on time and do all that, they're going to be the ones that's most expensive. So again, if you have a really good deal and you can afford to pay top of line contractors, then yeah, great. But I can tell you right now, you're not going to make money in this business. You're not. Another thing you can ask them is, how do they pay their guys? Do they expect to be paid weekly? Because that's a problem that I've run into with some of the crews that I've had to fire, is that they pay their guys weekly and they don't have money. Like the head guy doesn't have money to pay his crews. So he expects a check every Friday. And you have to tell them, hey, this is a, performance-based business, meaning that if the flooring's not done, I'm not giving you 70% of the flooring that you did because you did 70%. I'm not giving you 70% of that payout. You get paid out when all the flooring is done, the quarter round's done, everything is done. The reason why you do that and you don't pay them out 70%, because if you have to go hire somebody to finish their job, they're not going to be like, oh yeah, we're only going to charge you 30% because this other guy did 70%. No, that number, that bid's going to come in high because they have to come in and finish somebody else's work. So you have to make sure how they're paying their guys. The best relationships with contractors I've had are the ones that are a little more financially stable and they can afford to pay their workers out of pocket. It might not be 3-4 weeks worth, but hey, if they can at least float a week or two until they get that job done, then everybody's happy. The only contractors I've ever had to fire were ones that paid their contractors paid their laborers weekly. And they ran into 1 or 2 days, or two guys were sick or whatever it was, and they didn't have the money on Friday to be able to pay their crew. So what do? They had to go make money. So I go there on Thursday and Friday, and the job's not done. I knew exactly what was happening because he had to pay his guys. So he went and picked up another small job to be able to pay his guys. Well, that sets my timeline back. You might be able to get away with that once and make up for it by working a weekend or something like that, which is what he thought he could do. But it never ends up working out because all it does is put them behind for next week. So again, structure your payout correctly and don't pay out until you physically put eyes on it. But I'm going to make a much longer video detailed about how that, because I can go in very in depth. It's one of the biggest part of the BRRRR process is contractors. So I'll make a longer video for that. But that wraps up this week's investor recap and forecast. So I'll catch y'all around. Have a good one.